Commas number 3. Actually, it's not that complicated. In this video, we're going to talk about using coordinating conjunctions to equate one sentence with another in terms of rhetorical importance. We combine two sentences by using a comma and one of these coordinating conjunctions: for and nor, but, or, yet, and so. Here's what it looks like. So on both sides of the coordinating conjunction, we have complete sentences. And we know what complete sentences are now because we've watched videos 1 and 2 in this series. So we have sentence 1 followed by a comma, one of these coordinating conjunctions that fits the relationship that we're trying to set up between the two sentences, and then sentence number 2. One of the best ways that you can use to remember these coordinating conjunctions is through the acronym FANBOYS. Again, you can use the finger test to determine whether you have used coordination appropriately. You can put your finger over the first sentence and read the second sentence to determine that it is a complete sentence. Similarly, you can put your finger over the second sentence, read the first sentence, and determine that it is a complete sentence. Remember that a simple sentence includes the subject, the object, and the verb. So let's look at some sentences. After 1991, the practice of sampling decreased significantly. Comma, coordinating conjunction, I've chosen for. Duffy's ruling legitimized exorbitant licensing fees. So let's test whether this is an appropriate use of coordination. First, we want to look at whether we have chosen the right coordinating conjunction. Does for fit the context of the relationship between these two sentences? For is the correct choice. Now, let's use our finger test. Let's put our finger over the coordinating conjunction, the comma, and the second sentence, and just read the first sentence to make sure it has a subject, a verb, and an object. So again, I will recommend that you look for the verb first. It's usually the easiest to find. The word that is doing the action in this sentence is decreased. So that's our verb. So what comes before it is our subject. Now note that we have an introductory phrase here. The subject is probably between the introductory phrase and the verb. The practice of sampling is our subject. Then the object, or the predicate of the sentence, comes after the verb, significantly. The practice of sampling decreased significantly. Could we put a period there, a full stop, and end the sentence? Yes. So it looks like this side is working well. Now we need to check that the second sentence could stand on its own. And if it can, then we know for sure that we're using coordination effectively. So let's look at it. Duffy's ruling legitimized exorbitant licensing fees. So what's the verb? Legitimized. That's the action word. What's the subject of the sentence? That's what comes before the verb. Duffy's ruling. What's the object of the sentence? Exorbitant licensing fees. It comes after the verb. Duffy's ruling legitimized exorbitant licensing fees. Are we using coordination effectively here? Yes, we are. Now, what happens if we just want to use because? There's nothing wrong with using because. It is not an informal word. What happens is we drop the comma. The word because is stronger than a coordinating conjunction. You can think of it as a strong man. It just doesn't need the help of a comma. But it works the same way in this case. We can still have the two complete sentences on either side of the because. So this sentence structure is placing both of these ideas on either side of the hinge there in the middle. In this case, it's because, and in this case, it's the comma plus the coordinating conjunction on equal footing. Here's another example. Advocates for freedom of expression made important gains in the culture wars, comma, but pro-censorship groups made deeper and longer-lasting gains through the courts. Once again, you can use the finger test to make sure that this is a grammatically effective use of coordination. Here's an example of a common mistake, and it involves this complicated word, however. So let's look at example 1, which is our mistake. Sampling occurs with significantly less frequency today than in the 1980s, comma, however, it remains a feature of hip-hop culture. The problem here is that however isn't technically a conjunction. That means that it doesn't have the power to conjoin the two sentences. So, if we look at this example, we see that we have two sentences on our hands, and we can see that there is a subject, a verb, and an object on both sides of our however. So let's just look at that. Sampling, which is our subject, occurs, which is our verb, and our predicate or object with significantly less frequency today than in the 1980s. Could we put a period at the end of that? Yes, because it includes a subject, an object, and a predicate. Let's look at the second half. It remains a feature of hip-hop culture. The subject is it. Remains is the action word or the verb. and then the predicate or the rest of the sentence is a feature of hip-hop culture. So technically, however, not being classified as a conjunction that can conjoin two sentences, it just can't be used with a comma to fuse these two sentences into a single sentence. So what we need to use is a full stop. So let's look at our example of the correct way to use however. Sampling occurs with significantly less frequency today than in the 1980s, full stop. However, it remains a feature of hip-hop culture, period. So here we're using however correctly. In fact, I maybe should have included a comma after that however, because arguably it's a bit of introductory context information. It's not essential to that simple sentence, which we've already seen includes the subject, a verb, and an object. If we can eliminate however from the sentence, if you can remove it, you should punctuate it. However, comma, it remains a feature of hip-hop culture. So here is a revision of our evolving paragraph that includes some instances of coordination, as well as the introductory phrases that we introduced into it in video 2. In the last 2 decades of the 20th century, the so-called culture wars in America killed sampling culture. Freedom of expression advocates made strong gains during the culture wars, yet a 1991 court ruling made all unlicensed sampling illegal. Due to this ruling, sampling multiple tracks became too expensive for most artists. Unfortunately, the ruling had the greatest impact on hip-hop, for sampling is the foundation of hip-hop. What I want you to start noticing is that the introduction of complexity into our simple sentences, as we begin to combine them together or contextualize them through introductory phrases, that what we're doing is actually helping the reader make connections. We are guiding them through our text. We are essentially holding their hand from one idea to the other so that the reading experience is as fluid as possible for them, so that they feel like there is a coherence in what we are communicating and intrinsic relationships between sentences. This is the power of using commas to construct complex sentences.